Okay, Travis Wayne Goodsell, like I was pointing out, he's taking one question and making it multiple questions. He starts off with Book of Mormon plagiarism, of specifically the King James Version. And so his third question is, Book of Mormon includes mistranslated biblical passages that were later changed in Joseph Smith's translation of the Bible. Not quite. This involves a little bit of church history that people are not talking about. Church definitely isn't talking about it because they were not involved in the origin of the church. Brigham Young was not a part of it, and so when he ordered the murder of Joseph Smith, he didn't care about the religion and just wanted to use it to lure Mormons to follow him into the desert to die and be punished and all sorts of stuff. And so the church historians also don't know and understand this either. Gerald and Sandra Tanner don't even know this. What happened is William Morgan. William Morgan was arrested in the jail in the township where Joseph Smith Sr. was the master mason. And as I did my research, that's how I learned that Joseph Smith had a direct connection with William Morgan. As I continued to research to see more information, church history is not something you can do in a day. There's so many branches. So the book that I worked on took full days. Jeremy talks about having studied for a year. I doubt he spent all day every day for a year. His family would not have appreciated him, as my wife didn't appreciate me either, and left during that research process. Oh well. And so what happened is Joseph Smith had been working for Martin Harris before. When they moved to Palmyra from Vermont, from Massachusetts, I think it's the place where, was it Dartmouth? But in Palmyra, Joseph was able to get a membership in the I can't pronounce it, the township down there. And so because he had the horse and carriage, he was the one who got to travel. And so Hiram Smith stayed in Palmyra to be the mason at that lodge. That's how it works. You can't be the same family member relation in the same lodge. You have to find different lodges for the different family members. And that's the reason why Joseph Smith did not become a mason, is because he didn't have a horse to go traveling around with, and Hiram got the Palmyra location as the older brother. And so Joseph needed to find something else to do with his time, and worked for Martin Harris on his farm. And that's where Martin Harris talks about how he knew of Joseph's rocks in a hat trick, because Joseph was pulling that trick on the farm. Oh, you lost something, did you, Martin? I'll find it for you. So Joseph would be teasing him with that. Martin Harris was a very superstitious person, as it's been recorded. He was doing lots of things based on that superstitious belief. And he was rich. He got the inheritance of the farm, and so that connection is why the Smiths chose him to pay for the publication of the book. And Martin Harris wanted to be a part of the book. He didn't want to get scammed out of his money, and knew Joseph Smith because he worked there, Junior, and so he said, well, yeah, but I want to be a part of it. I want to help. I don't want, I want to know what I'm investing in. And so, because of the Cooper shop, if you remember that video series, the Cooper shop was the way in which Joseph Smith Sr. was able to bring in copper and make the plates for the Book of Mormon for the print press. You take the manuscript copies, put them onto the copper plates, requiring special glasses to read what's on the copper plates, and then you give them to the print press, and then they get the little individual letters and put them in the press. That was the process, and copper plates were the most effective use because of its malleability, and so Smith needed Martin Harris because of his wanting to help and be involved. He needed him away from the farm, from the Cooper shop. And so Joseph Smith Jr. took him out to Harmony, Pennsylvania, where he'd been working with Josiah Stoll because of Emma Smith, the little cutie hottie that he eloped with, at the township courthouse where he was arrested himself in March of 1826. I don't understand why he went there. Out of all the courthouses in the world, you had to choose this one. So Joseph Smith kept going back, even though the uncle, or the cousin or nephew of Josiah Stoll was the one who sued Joseph Smith at that place where he eloped to. And yet Stoll still hired Joseph after he got released. What's going on? So Stoll didn't care about looking in a hat. He just wanted the silver. So that's why Joseph Smith was out there. And so Joseph got Martin Harris, took him out of the way so that the Smith Sr. and Oliver Cowdery can get to work. Maybe Oliver Cowdery's dad, not quite sure. Haven't found that connection. But I'm sure the Cowderys, Father William Cowdery was also involved, if I were to do a little more research. They learned that trade while as New Israelites in Vermont. It's a variation of Congregationalists that the Cowderys were a part of until Nathan, can't remember his last name, Nathan started the New Israelites. See, that's why I have research books, because I don't memorize. And then a guy came in who's a counterfeiter and taught everybody counterfeiting. They were not members, William and Joseph, because they did not practice polygamy. And the Book of Mormon over and over and over 3 times says no polygamy. bad. And so there was an anti-polygamous message in the family as well. And so the Joseph Smith translation was the deal that the Smiths made with Sidney Rigdon. Sidney Rigdon had been a Campbellite Baptist in Pittsburgh, is where he transferred to, and that's where he had the post office box that Mormon Think talks about. But he left Pittsburgh. And so it was after he left, I think that's when Solomon Spaulding died, or Solomon Spaulding died before Sidney Rigdon got there. I'd have to check my research again for the dating. But Sidney Rigdon hung out. He was best friends with the people at the print press there in Pittsburgh because of his accident as a kid that his brother later talks about that resulted in some brain damage. He still was able to speak well, as he was a preacher for the Campbellites, Baptists, doing his own thing as well, his own church, but he wasn't able to come up with his own sermons. He plagiarized his sermons, and that's how he was able to get by preaching the Word of God in his sermons. Was getting books. So he collected a whole ton of books. His brother and son talk about his vast library, and it was his head damage, brain damage, that needed to plagiarize in order to come up with the sermons that he did. So he was already trained and well read for that. And then when Solomon Spaulding's manuscript was unpublished because he died, Sidney Rigdon picked it up. So I'm pretty sure the timing was Solomon Spaulding had died, and then Sidney Rigdon was there. Hey, we got this manuscript. He died. Okay, I'll take it. Add it to my collection. He had no intention of publishing it himself. He wasn't like that. However, he wanted, as a Campbellite, and this is why he separated from Campbell, was because Campbell wanted to retranslate the New Testament only, and Sidney Rigdon wanted to translate the whole Old and New Testaments, and that's why Sidney left. And Sidney had been wanting to do this and then wanting to find the time and the ability to work on it, but was unable to. And the Smiths come along. Sidney Rigdon returned to Pennsylvania, to a town adjoining Harmony, north of Pittsburgh, northwest of Pittsburgh, southwest of Harmony, and that close relation to where Joseph Smith was, with Pittsburgh being the main town, or the main city, to get supplies and stuff. That's where they would have run into each other. This is going to be a little longer. I'm going to try to keep it short. But so when Martin Harris says, no, this has got too much Freemason stuff in it, as a member of the council in Palmyra, of anti-Masons because of William Morgan. He destroyed the 116 pages. They needed something else to replace it with. Then, thus, Joseph Smith Sr. put in his dream, put in the plagiarism from the King James Version of the Bible with the errors, and the Joseph Smith translation was the deal that they made, because Joseph Smith blew it. The first two sections of the Doctrine and Covenants, which are now section 3 and 10, that talk about the 116 pages and then how to fix it. That's Joseph Smith Sr. chastising Joseph Smith Jr. for trusting that wicked man, Martin Harris. And he's furious. But Joseph apparently was able to say, hey, I met this guy named Sidney Rigdon. He's got a book that was unpublished. Why not see if we can get a hold of him? And so, sure enough, they're already talking about the Solomon Spaulding manuscript with the Lamanites and the Nephites. And so they already knew what they were going to do, but they had to put it in coding for communication purposes. And now you know. So, yeah, Sidney Rigdon wanted to do the Joseph Smith translation, and yet they couldn't openly say, hey, why don't you just join us then, like we did with Oliver Cowdery, who was family. So they devised the plan to involve Parley P. Pratt. I got this guy in my congregation, Parley P. Pratt, great composer, great writer, sermon writer. Let's get him involved in this, but we can't let him know that what we're doing. So here's the plan. He'll be down near Palmyra on such and such a date. Have him bump into missionaries with the Book of Mormon. And then he'll read it. He'll see his plagiarized material in it, and he'll go, wow, this is great stuff. And sure enough, that's what happened. And Parley P. Pratt goes back to his congregation and say, hey, I found this book. This is awesome. Let's all join. Okay. So Sidney Rigdon then joins in December of that year of 1830, and Joseph Smith starts them right up with the Joseph Smith translation. That's how it worked. So that's the tactic that was used. And you'd have to... I'm not sure if Jeremy will ask those questions to bring up the other church history parts, but we'll see. We'll go into William Morgan more. But it has to do with the threat to the United States, which was encoded in the Book of Mormon. Pay attention, people. And the trial that's going on right now, the defense counsel is speaking, and I don't want to listen to them because they're full of it. They're like Mormons talking, apologists trying to defend the church with fallacy. So, alright.